I have been talking about radical acceptance on my channel as of late. And, there was a point in my career, and I think a lot of people kind of relate to this when you're young, where you moralize and think that you can change the entire world. I think that's why hippies was, there's a lot of people alive today that when they were young were hippies. It's why people have these phases in college where they're like blue-haired feminists or whatever. But there was just a point where I was debating on these issues all the time, and I just had to accept that things were just not going to change. Now, I want to give an example of this is pro-life versus pro-choice debate. So as you guys know, I'm very pro-life. My mom took me to pro-life rallies when I was like 12 years old. Like we went to a Sarah Palin rally. And what happened at these was I actually remember debating. I don't know why. I remember being like 12 and debating abortion on the playground. And this is an especially near and dear issue to my heart because my parents have been on both sides of adoption. So they've given a kid up for adoption and we've also adopted. I've been on both sides. But I just refuse to argue about abortion anymore. And the reason I came to this conclusion, there was a couple reasons. So first of all, my dad, he thinks I'm a little extreme. He's always been conservative, and my dad is one of the reasons I am conservative. But he even thought that the abortion stuff is just too far. And I said, Dad, but you don't think it's murder? Like, you don't think it's wrong? And he said, yeah, it is, but it's never going to change. Most people don't agree that it should be legal at 9 months. So why don't we just cut a deal with them? Why don't we just say, okay, 3 months, cut a deal, be done, quit arguing about it? And another reason I came to this conclusion was when I was in London, I would show women videos of abortions. I would show them actual, evidence of how terrible abortions were. And they don't care. They don't care in the slightest. Women TikTok their abortions now. And I realized it's always been this way because if you look at the infant mortality rate of 100 years ago, I believe it's similar to the abortion rate today because women were either being negligent or killing their kids. That's what I believe. That it's possible. It's not true, but that. And I really thought that somehow I was doing something moral by arguing about these issues. I really did. At the time, you almost develop like a hero complex, and you feel like by debating this stuff, you are saving society, saving the babies, whatever it is. But there are some ships that are just sinking, and that's the best way I can describe it. So the abortion, I understand we won Roe versus Wade. Maybe the abortion rate goes down slightly, but overwhelmingly women have won. They won. They get abortions and they're going to have them forever. At least as long as I am alive in my lifetime. I am encroaching in on 30. I'm 28. And so I'm getting close to my halfway around. Like, let's say I live to be 80. I'm a decade. I don't really see this changing in my lifetime. Okay. And radical acceptance has really made me think about my morals and it's made me a happier person. Because before, if I would debate somebody about abortion, I would get really frustrated if they didn't see my point of view. And I would view them as immoral. I would think that they were an immoral person and I was fighting on the side of morality. And what I realized is that people have a right to their hell. Now, I believe abortion is murder. If it were up to me, it would be illegal. But people have a right to make complete chaos in their lives. And some people will just not learn from their mistakes until their life is a living hell. 28 and granny. I know, I'm like a granny. If I live to be 95, I'm going to be pissed. I don't want to live that long. So I used to, and I really do regret this to some. I can't say I regret it because it was what I believed at the time, but I think you guys have sort of seen me grow up a little bit on camera because I've been making TikToks since I was 24, 23, maybe 22. I don't know, 23 or 24. So you guys have kind of seen me like live through my 20s, right? And while even in that clip, I was saying abortion's morally wrong, being a single mother is morally wrong. And well, that may be true. Radical acceptance has helped me separate the morality of women's actions to have a better discourse and accept things the way that they are. Because, you know, there's some stuff that women are just never going to change, ever. And you get to a certain point where you realize that there are causes that are just sinking ships. They're going down. And you got two choices. You can either save yourself and go learn to swim, or try to save everybody that wants to drown. So I started thinking about this. And I started thinking, what would it take for the average person to give up on a hopeless pursuit? What would it take for the average person to give up on a cause that's losing? You know, for example, I have met so many people over the years that are environmentalists. They care a lot about the environment. And when I went to a Kamala rally, that was not one of the main, but that was a not uncommon answer that I got from people when I was interviewing, was that they were voting for Kamala to save the environment. I also meet so many people that understand that there's not really much that we can do to save the environment. You know, Americans think that driving a hybrid or recycling will make a dent in the world pollution problem. But, you know, I've actually been to India. I went there a decade ago. I promise to God, we are not doing shit when it comes to the environment. Nothing. And I see all this, you know, time and energy that they're spending on a cause that's just sinking. It's a sinking ship. So I've also, you know, I have a vegan guitar teacher, and I've told you, I think he's been on the show. And he's a really intelligent guy, really smart guy. And I was having a conversation with him the other day, and I was asking him, what would it take for him to abandon this, you know, because he's not a Trump fan, obviously, right? But I asked him, I said, how much more money would you have to make under Trump to abandon this vegan stuff, to abandon this environment stuff? And at first I said, you know, $10,000 a month, would you do it? And he said, no. I walked away from all this money before. I wouldn't do it. Because he worked in, really smart guy, really great person. But he worked in finance before. And then I kept upping the number, and I saw him, you know, getting closer. And then I said, what about this music opportunity? What if this musical under Trump, there was some sort of funding that went towards musicals, and you got an amazing role in one? Would you abandon? So on your Trump ticket, it says you get this opportunity, but F the environment. The environment, there's no policies. It's all drill, baby, drill. Would you vote for it? And I said, for me, if Kamala went out and said abortion's up to 9 months, but you get your monetization back, or the divorce laws change tomorrow, I would say, fuck it. Click. I'd say, Kamala. You know, so at a certain point, there are causes that are not worth fighting. And it's not necessarily compromising your morals, because I would never perform an abortion. I would never get an abortion. There's no amount of money that could make me do that. They could not pay me. But I also am aware that I cannot stop these hoes from killing their kids. I cannot. You guys are saying, hell no. I mean, if they want to throw their kids in dumpsters, how many kids get thrown in dumpsters every year that nobody finds? Only God can change a woman's mind. The most you can do is try to convince women to do the right thing, is that she'll make harmful choices and more enthusiastically out of spite. Exactly. At some point, it's a lost cause, and you got to abandon the sinking ship, because if you don't abandon the sinking ship, you will drown. Now, I want to tell this other story. So this is kind of interesting. And I genuinely think that I had someone on my show a while ago. I never released the footage because he was just too controversial, and it just didn't make sense for me. But he had his version, I'll just say, of a sinking ship. So he really believed in the J question. I'm not getting into that, but he showed me his evidence, and it was very convincing, and he really laid out his case, and I really understood why he believed what he believed. But I could just see that he was an older guy, like 70s, And I could just tell that all of the years he spent fighting, he could have been building something. If he just accepted, he spent years arguing over this topic. And if he just said, you know what, this is the way it is. Let me go navigate the world the way it is and maybe build an app, maybe, build something to make my community's life better. And I realized, I was like, I don't want to turn into this guy. I don't want to go crazy fighting for stuff that'll just never change and getting hopeful and expecting things to change. I would rather just accept and navigate the world the way it is. For example, you could have a conversation saying, degeneracy is bad. Degeneracy, like no sleeping around. We hate whores. Or you could say, if you're going to sleep around, these are the STDs that can ruin your life. These are the STDs you got to watch out for. These are the risks. These are the pros. These are the cons. If you're going to do it this way. If you choose not to, try an arranged marriage, ask your family. There's practical ways that we can kind of take away the morality and just have a little bit more interesting of a conversation, because morality is not going to change the way the world is. Any group, you're going to have the same dynamic. Women go for 20% of men, then convince the next 20% they didn't sleep with the top 20% of men. Get married, divorce. I mean, there's just stuff that's never going to change. And, growing up, my dad, he never verbalized this to me, but he really had this point of view, or has, I would say, because he would, every time gossip would come out or a crazy story or like something in our town, I would say, Dad, can you believe it? This happened. And he would say, what do you expect? People are people. Nothing surprises me. And my dad is a very happy person. And he just never, even though my dad is a very, very moral, like the way he lives his life is stupid moral. He just works, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't cheat. He's just, when you meet, like if you ever meet my dad, he's just a great person. And he doesn't really worry about political, he casts his vote and then he goes. My boyfriend's another one who really showed me this. I mean, there were just times where, we were talking and, he would kind of just show me how this was a waste of time arguing about morality. I don't bother saving anyone. I just give them enough rope and let them hang themselves. And sometimes you got to let people fail. If you don't let them fail, to be honest, guys, my dad, during the last year, when I had all these like business problems, my dad let me fail. When I was burning through cash because I overhired people, when I was making management mistakes, my dad very well could have saved it for me. And he's so intelligent because he just said, no, you need to learn. And to be honest, guys, I have a really good feeling this time around. I know Anna's leaving, right? But I am in so much better of a position now because I failed, because I have a new business model. And in 6 months, I understand how to do it. And I understand how to grow other people's accounts too. And this is going to be a great business model that's going to keep me employed forever. And I never would have learned it if I didn't fail.